Welcome to Hollywood and Sip. I'm your host, Kat Smith, and with me today is Kerry Rego. Is it Rego?
Rego, that's right.
Yeah. And I'm chatting with you today because you have a YouTube video titled, "It's Time to Stand Up, Revisit Your Values." And it really touched me. It caused me to take action. And I thought, in this time right now, I think it's a discussion worth having. And I want to make sure that more people, my listeners on KSBY, and hopefully some people on YouTube, give your video a look. And so I thought we could just have a little discussion about it.
Please.
I want to start off before we get into the video and why you made it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and who you are?
Well, my business is named after me. It's Kerry Rego Consulting. My specialty is social media strategy and training, but I also teach at Santa Rosa Junior College, Sonoma State University. I've written 3 books on the topic. And I try to be really involved in the community based on the unusual skill set that I have.
And in this particular video, you're advising people on, the reason I wanted to reach out to you too is that I'm also in social media, and I've always come from a place of in advising my clients not to talk politics or religion and to really avoid hot button issues unless it really does pertain to your business. There are some things that you're going to want to speak up to if it affects you directly, but I try to avoid those conflicts with my clients because, it is a touchy environment, the social media world. But in this situation, and I know you agree because that's why you made the video, I think there's a difference in this time and place that we are in right now. So why don't you kind of share with us the message and then we'll break it down further.
Well, I have been in social media for 14 years now. So I am fully indoctrinated to not upset people, to use language that is acceptable for everybody, and to toe the line and try and keep as many people happy as possible. So I can completely relate. And that's part of being in messaging and marketing. At this point, you have probably experienced this. Just about every vendor that has your email address has either posted a black square on their Instagram account, or they have released an almost identical statement to everybody else about what their feelings are around Black Lives Matter. And it is also worrisome that it's required to say something, but that they're not actually going to do anything. Now, values for me is not something that is new. It's a conversation I have with my clients every single day when I work on their strategies. I force, I really make sure that my clients think about who they are. What's the difference between you and the next taxi company and the next painting company? What do you stand for? What are you about? What's your personality? So I have been talking about identifying and really communicating what is important to you and your organization. And I felt the need in my video to really talk about my own personal journey with being honest on the internet. And because my job is to tell people how to behave on the internet, of course, I've always minded my P's and Q's in capital letters. With my own personal journey of stepping out into dangerous spaces or scary spaces, out in the open, sticking your neck out and hoping you don't get your head chopped off. And I've been doing it by inches for years and years and years. And when I say years and years, my sense of time is warped because I'm in social media. So forgive me on that one.
I hear you.
Right? Clocks don't mean anything to us. Calendars don't mean anything to us. So I've been doing that myself and finding ways to be who I am on the internet. And what I've noticed as a personal journey, every time I stick my neck out, my fear that my head's going to get chopped off or that somebody is going to reject me. Of course, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're afraid of not belonging. And that's a real fear. I was rewarded every single time I showed vulnerability, every single time I stood up for something that was important to me. Now, Kat, I'm not going to give myself a lot of points because I was doing it from a personal perspective. Right, I was doing it on my personal profiles, though some of my channels are intermixed because my brand is named after me. Some of them are hybrid, but in this case, most of the time it's on Facebook. my Facebook personal profile versus my business page. So I'd done a lot of hard work in the personal space, and I had the confidence, I built up the confidence to know that I could bring a harder value conversation into my business. But I did struggle throughout COVID-19 and shelter in place. How do I provide value? How do I talk to my customers? And I ultimately decided I don't have anything to add to the conversation when we're talking about life and death. I don't have any place to speak around shelter in place, though I do occasionally speak about disaster communications, and that's usually a physical disaster, whether it's a fire or a flood. I have no experience guiding my clients through a pandemic, as I don't think any other marketer really has more experience either. But I just decided to be quiet and pay attention, and just wait for the right opportunity for the message that felt right for my brand. And for me, it often is about values. It is often about culture and spirit and honesty and authenticity. That is a place that is natural for my business. So I found the right moment to say what I needed to say, but I didn't continue to market as normal and talk about Instagram filters and how to get more engagement. All of that kind of messaging I had to set aside, and wait for a moment that had gravitas and importance. And I found that right moment. And it wasn't too surprising to me that it was really about values and spirit and the soul of your business.
There were several things in there that I kind of want to touch on. I think the first one is the baby steps that you took on your personal page.
Mhm.
I think that's very good advice, because for most people, I'm one of those who believes keeping all my social media public, because I don't believe there's privacy on the internet. But that's hard
Right.
to grasp for some people. So they do feel like they need to control their friendships and who's seeing their content. And that's perfectly fine too. But in that case, that does limit your audience. So that does give you a safer space to work on how you're going to share these messages. And it gives you the safety to make some mistakes before posting as your business. So I thought that was a really valuable tip, that you started on your personal page and grew up the confidence to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's hard as a business. And then I personally took it as a challenge watching your video. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's right. I need to say something. And I did. And I felt so brave after I did it. It's not about me, but the message that's been coming out, that silence is compliance. I that one struck me, and your message came at just the right time. And so I chose to do it. And you know what's scary about it? It's not scary. What happens is you find out really quick who you have on your friends list that you really shouldn't have on your friends list. And I'm not ashamed to say there were a couple of blocks I did this week, because, another thing about social media is it makes it really easy just to have anybody in the world on your list. You meet them once, you don't know what they stand for. And it gives you that opportunity to kind of weed out maybe negative impacts that you don't need in your life, that you don't really recognize are there influencing you every day. So, I mean, I think that was kind of a bonus in it too. But for the most part, you're right. I got a lot of really valuable feedback, because I'm still learning too. This is a huge moment in history, and none of us are going to get it right on the first try. And all we can do is try to do it better the next time, and take what we're given and keep trying to learn, and also not distract. There's a lot of people who really have strong messages they need out there. So for example, you were talking about the blacking out the squares. I went on right away and I said, okay, you guys, if you're going to share that in your profile picture, don't mention the phrase that I'm not mentioning right now, because you're cluttering the message. So there's different layers to it too. At the beginning of your video, you talk about how you shouldn't just jump right into posting what you're thinking, that you should go back to your mission statement and really think about how it falls in line with what's happening right now. Do you want to talk about that a little bit of what they should be looking to inward?
So absolutely. Now, I am a people pleaser. As a woman, we're very much trained to make people happy. So it's taken me a really long time to recognize when I say yes in a situation that's not healthy for me. Now, being in social media for such a long time, I get lots and lots of requests, and it's probably not unique to social media, but I get lots and lots of requests. Can you edit my website? Can you take photographs for me? Can you program an app? None of those things are on my website. None of those things were in the proposal that I gave you. So why are you asking me to do something outside of my scope of work? So I had to get really, really good at saying, I hear your need. Let me provide a vendor for you that's going to work. So I had to learn how to say no, because I took so many jobs because I was hustling and trying to put food on the table and build a business, that you take jobs that aren't right for you. And you learn, hopefully, you learn right away that, ooh, I'm not going to do that one again. But you have to make errors in order to learn how to recognize what are good jobs, good situations. So that takes practice. Now, what I noticed was when I created my own mission statement, which is I help people and technology together change the world. So I might not change the world, but Kat, you're going to change somebody's world. So me interacting with you, sharing, educating, you're going to go change somebody else's world. So for me, every single day when I get up, that's my goal. So now I use that as a litmus. I use a litmus test. I use that as my barometer. I use it as my anchor. Does this project, does this idea, does this thought, this problem, whatever the situation is, does this fall in line with it's going to help me help other people change the world using technology? And I get approached all the time to do all kinds of things. I had somebody ask me yesterday, I'm a speaker, so I speak about 100 times a year, all over the place, largely about digital media and social media, right? Sometimes bullying, cyberbullying, that kind of thing. Somebody asked me yesterday that was hiring me to speak, do you want to be a speaker on diversity? And I said, no, I speak about diversity when I talk about communication. So it's already built into what I do, but that isn't my forward projection. That isn't the first thing that I'm doing. It is built into what I do. So no, I don't want to be labeled as a speaker on diversity, though I talk about it all the time in so many different ways. So I had to be very clear, and that's exactly what she said. She said, you're very clear, and now I understand what you need and what you want. So for me, repeating my mission statement helps me make decisions. I'd love, that sounds fantastic, but it's not really in line with why I'm here. I could absolutely bury myself with a million different, very exciting opportunities. I don't have the energy, I don't have the health, I don't have the time. And I also have to remember, if I don't have the energy, health, or time, if I give it away, then I don't have anything left for my family. So
Right.
that is the reason why I use my mission statement to remind me of what I'm doing here. Otherwise, I'll say yes to everything and then have a panic attack or have a breakdown or just shut down and not be able to do anything. I have done that. So it was a lesson hard learned from overwhelming myself and damaging my health. That has been the through line that helps me make decisions that are healthy and smart for me.
And I think in my next question, I I answered a bit of it when I was speaking before, but I was going to ask you about the fear of losing clients or customers in coming out with a statement. But I think as part of that, I think you really need to think about why you're making a statement, not just jumping into it to do it. I think that we mentioned the cookie cutter testimonial that most businesses are sending out. I mean, I'm sure they feel like they need to say something, but to me, it's more important to say something because you have something to say. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. And this is about the basic rules of conversation. Are you talking to talk or are you talking to add value? If you're not talking to add value, be silent and listen. This is that moment. The word listening is, I'm hearing it all the time. But what's funny is sometimes people will write paragraph after paragraph after paragraph and say, I'm listening. I'm like, well, that's actually the opposite of listening. And so here's a conflict, Kat. It is, I had a friend right after she watched the video, she called me and she said, I don't know what to do. Should I listen or should I speak up? And I said, you have a valid question. And I went in and edited the description on the video to make sure that it was very clear that I really was talking about businesses and organizations. I do say the word organization over and over throughout the video, but because she was curious, because she didn't know, it was worth clarifying. And I said, as an organization, I'm talking about standing up for your values as an organization if you're going to be speaking at a time like this. Personally, my advice would be different. So depending on what perspective you're coming from, if you are somebody that wants to be an ally, but somebody that is waking up to disenfranchised communities, and you finally understood, it's finally clicked that there's a serious problem, you don't have the solutions, clearly, because you've just found out. You don't have the education, you don't have the vocabulary, you don't even understand what the landscape is. So just like when you show up first day on the job, you clearly don't know what you're doing. Your job is to be trained. You can't be trained and talk at the same time. So it's really key that we understand there's two different ways to approach this, but it really boils down to, if you don't have anything of value to offer to the conversation, then don't take up the air and the space.
Right. And I was just thinking, so I shared mine. I saw your disclaimer earlier. I didn't remember seeing it before. So it's nice to know that you went back in and added that. So I'm kind of in a unique position like you are, in that my business is my name also. So to me, the brand, there's no line for me. I am my business, right? So I chose to do my personal page as opposed to my business page because I have more eyes there, I feel like. And that's the thing. I really did just say, I'm just figuring this out now. I'm sorry that I didn't figure it out sooner, and I'm here to listen. I was surprised at the people who attacked in the way of saying things like, well, I don't see you out there marching, and I don't see this. And my only response was, I feel like I literally just said in my post, I just figured it out. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So
give me a second. Give me a second
to figure my way out through this. But I'm here and I'm listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've found what's interesting is that I'm mixed. My mom is Black and my dad is white. And I'm fairly light skinned. So I have to acknowledge that on the colorism scale, right, I have a lot of benefits and a lot of privilege in my own space. What's interesting in the community that I live in Santa Rosa, that it's not often noticed. Nobody ever really pays attention. It doesn't come up in conversation that I'm a person of color very often. I don't have other people say it to me, but now I've heard from so many people, and now all of a sudden, now I feel like a token, right? That's been very interesting. So the element of listening or just figuring it out is leaning, at this point, finding your most woke white friend and talking to them is a really good idea, because there's so much emotion happening for people of color, particularly Black people, because they've been fighting this their entire lives, that it is disheartening and sad and depressing that so many people are saying, and it's not malicious, we know that, but it is so depressing to hear hundreds of people say, oh, I never really noticed before. So we've been screaming, but nobody could hear us. It was like the volume was turned off. So they don't have the capacity or energy to really help their friends get woke. So the recommendation is to find your most woke white friend who knows what's going on and talk to that person. They have the mental capacity and energy to do it. Your friends of color don't.
Right. And I also want to point out, and I did make a mistake after that first post. And so
everybody
my next post had to be now, I apologize for doing this one. But the message in my sharing that is that you need to recognize that you're going to make mistakes and you have to own them. You can't just, oh man, well now I give up on the cause. No, you don't give up on the cause. You say, look what I did wrong. Don't do this too. And, just keep trying to get better.
You know what, Kat, how I turn the phrase on that and make that work is my mother passed away, so I was raised largely around my white relatives. I saw my Black relatives, but when you lose a parent, you lose a big connection to that culture. So I had to actively search out my Blackness. I had to put a lot of effort into gaining information. And I'm 43. Every single day, I'm learning something about my own history, because ultimately they don't put it in regular history books. You have to seek out Black history. You don't have a choice. So what's interesting is that I don't know, but every single day I'm a huge bookworm. I can't stop learning. I love it. It just makes me so happy to understand your perspective, what you're going through. And so for me, learning is the way to do that. So how I have brought new words to this is saying, you know what? I just learned something. I learned X. Did you know? I didn't know. Or, oh my gosh, this phrase it's racist or it's discriminatory. Oh my gosh. And I feel terrible because I've been using it my whole life. I've just learned this phrase. If you didn't know, I'm going to share it with you. So I always frame it around, I didn't know something and I've now learned something, and I offer it gently. If somebody wants to take it, they can take it. But the wording of, here's something you need to know. It's this thing I don't do. So I really frame it around, I didn't know. Oh my gosh. And now I know. And that is sugar on the medicine.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful too, because you're giving yourself power and you're empowering somebody else to go on that journey with you.
And for me, you mentioned acknowledging error or fault. There at some point, I don't know what happened or really when, but I just really started to enjoy acknowledging, shoot, I messed up. I am so all in on admitting when I make a mistake or an error, that I have made it a personal mission to be as loud and as clear as possible that I have made an error. And I want as many people to recognize or see me say that, because it's one thing I've noticed in our society, in our culture as humans, we're almost allergic to admitting fault. So I'm trying, one woman show, I'm trying to change the tide on that. So the more people that are able to admit error, the more people will get comfortable with it, and then we can try and do that ourselves.
Right. And I hesitate to share this, but I'm going to share it. So the mistake that I made was, I made my original post saying, I apologize that I've been ignorant and that I haven't had this education and I'm coming into it, I'm paraphrasing. And in that, of course, I don't want to nutshell the audience, but it really was middle-aged white men who were trying to save me, tell me I was wrong. Here's why. Is that the only generation that's going to do it to me? I don't know, but that's what was coming to help me. And I appreciate that you wanted to help. It wasn't the message I was giving, but in that, I thought, well, now I have a Black advocate acquaintance, and I bet she would get a kick out of taking them down. Not even thinking. So I wrote her the message, said, hey, come over here. And she absolutely was right in her response to, you don't think I have enough to do right now? I don't have enough on my plate. And she did screenshot and she did share, and I didn't see it because we're not friends on Facebook. And I am okay with that. You know what? Call me out, because I was not seeing my error, and I saw it from that. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And it's another step in the learning. So I took that screenshot and I called myself out on it. I said, this is not what you do. It's like you were saying, find your white woke friend, go talk to her. And I did that. I found my two friends, and we've been in a whole thread just working it all out together. Right. And it's just, call yourself out. And I see this being something we can all grow from. If we start doing this now, if we start calling ourselves out, we have the chance to also help somebody else, not make the mistake, or see that they're doing it and think, oh gosh, that's wrong. I shouldn't be doing that.
Right on the nose. Perfectly. Yeah. That's exactly right.
And then I was going to ask you, some of the advice that you gave in there was also just, you don't necessarily have to go out and make a statement. There are things you can physically do. So what are some of those ideas that you have for people?
So things you can do. First and foremost, I do recommend every organization talk about causes that they believe in. Let me give you an example. I'm in Sonoma County, so you are as well, right, Kat?
Yeah. Okay. Sonoma Valley, yeah.
Okay, so in Sonoma County has been voted the #1 county in the state for volunteerism twice in the last 10 years. So when you have a business in Sonoma County, you have to give back to your community. If you don't, there's something obviously missing. So whatever it is you're into, you support you support Little League, you support, I don't know, a senior community, whatever it is that's important to you and special to you. We all have something. Identify what that thing is. And I actually had one company, that was the first time I'd ever heard somebody say this. They said, we have so many organizations that we believe in and that we work with. And I was like, really? And I said, and amongst the decision-making team, they decided on the one that was the most important to them, that they were going to rise above all of the others. So what is that organization? Identify who they are, put them on your website, write a blog about the organizations that you donate money to, donate time to, where your organization participates. Talk about that other organization. This is the definition of being an ally. When an ally has influence, there's a great story about Marilyn Monroe, who asked a club promoter to hire Ella Fitzgerald, who was not eligible to be hired because she was a larger woman and she was Black. She was legally not allowed to sing there. And Marilyn Monroe said, if you hire her, I will be there every single night. She was. And Ella, after that, her career was never the same. She never had a problem booking a gig after that. So all of us have power and influence in our own worlds. Find a way that you can rise up somebody else's messaging and their cause. So when you identify who it is that you really click with, or what organization you believe in, or what cause you believe in, it's easy to do this. So here are the actions. Things like putting them on your website, writing blogs about them, sharing when you've donated that money, that's awkward, or when you have participated in some kind of a physical event. Amplify their messaging when they're looking for more money, right? Usually are nonprofits, and sometimes it's really small. Sometimes it's, my kid's brownie troop is trying to buy coats for the homeless people, right? So maybe that's not like an official nonprofit, but you can rise up the voices of those Girl Scouts. People will go buy coats for Girl Scouts so that they can give it to homeless people. So talking about those organizations, amplifying their messaging, promoting them on your own channels. Another is to actively get money on their behalf, participate in their drives. Then you've got physical events. I was a Rotarian for many years, and I will go back at some point. Rotary is the largest nonprofit organization in the world, volunteer organization. And I loved projects where we were building parks, where we were cleaning up unattended gardens, where we were building benches. We were doing food drives. We handed out dictionaries in Sonoma County. All Rotary clubs adopt an elementary school, and every child in the 3rd grade gets a dictionary. So handing out the dictionaries to kids. Get physically involved. This is so that we can see that you're there. It's also a great idea to have the logo of your company on, so people know where you're coming from and they know who you are and they know who to thank. So when you shout out other organizations, here's another one. I have a friend that works for the Silicon Valley Food Bank, and she has meetings with Sheryl Sandberg and Elon Musk. She has power meetings. So when these big companies want to look good by donating money to this food bank, I said to her, when she asked me the same question you asked, I said, invite an organization that's not getting enough press or coverage or love, invite them into one of those power meetings and introduce them to those Silicon power players, or Silicon Valley power players. Use your influence to get them in the right room. So those are a few action items. So physical events, physical participation, promote their events, promote their funding, support them on your website, and make it a big part of your communications, whatever makes sense for you, whether it's their logo on your website or a page that says causes we believe in. Those are 2 to 3 different ways that you can participate and amplify and increase the visibility for any organization you believe in.
And just to make sure, once again, that people aren't jumping in and just saying the first thing that comes to their mind, do you want to give a couple of cautionary things, a couple what not to do's as you're moving into this new awoken space and sharing your opinion?
What not to do is attempt to be the leader. If you are new to a situation, you're not in a position to lead anything. I talked to a membership group organization, and the CEO asked me to review his thoughts, had me look at the letter before he sent it out. And I said it verbally, what my recommendation was, but then I ended up editing a line for him. And the gist of it was, I invite leaders of organizations and causes to come to me or speak with me, and I will do anything in my power to help you and your cause. The wording was more of, I'll do the thing, but it really is, we need to work together. So it really is a meeting of the minds, rather than I'm a little higher and I have a little bit more power. So be aware of the equitable power in there, and look at the wording. Another thing is to make sure, I have a 14-year-old, and there was a racist ad that was released by Volkswagen about a month ago. It was bad. It was really bad. And I had to explain to my 14-year-old, I said, she says, I want to know how that kind of thing gets approved. And I said, I think the exact same thing. And I said, you know how that kind of thing gets approved? There's no diversity in the room. So it's really important that you have a diverse base of people that are your checkpoints. So in a culturally sensitive situation, putting it out without it going through multiple rounds of editing to make sure that different stakeholders have some idea. Now, this is not the best time to build a diverse base right at this moment. Give it a couple of weeks, and then we can start to build diversity into our organizations if we don't already have that. But we need to have different sets of eyeballs look at our communication. It's really, really important that one person isn't the only person that looks at communication that's this important. So another don't would be to not name the elephant in the room. We've seen quite a few statements now that really skirt around the fact that this is a Black Lives Matter moment. Be clear in what you're going to say. Don't be vague. And if you're not ready to be clear, then you're not ready to speak. Those are my three don'ts.
Those are great. Those are great. And I wanted to add one that came into my mind as you were talking. I think we also need to hold our friends accountable, but in a nice, gentle way. I saw a local business post, and I'm not going to say what it was because I know there's too many people in the community who remember this post, but they were offering a food special, and they used a photograph that I'm sure they thought it was very innocent, but it really did make it a racial stereotype. And so, of course, they start to get attacked, and people are sharing, and all of a sudden the boycott the business thing happens. And you can look at it and you can see how innocently they didn't put it together themselves. So I think it's important to reach out privately, mention, I see that you did this. I don't think you see what you did. You might want to make an apology and just give them a gentle nudge. I mean, you can't change everybody. They may not have thought it was offensive, but all you can do is when you see it, just try to give them a little nudge saying, you might want to rethink this position, and absolutely, and like we said, own it. Don't just take it down, own it. Say, I made this mistake.
Yeah, that's the crisis management tactic is to not hide the mistake under the rug, because then the mistake festers. It doesn't go away. It's to own up to it. But this is really a make or break type of a situation where we're going to see what people's values are based on their behavior, even if they don't make a grand statement. This is where people are showing who they are and what they're about based on what they are able to do, what they're willing to do, and what they do.
Well, we're in a really interesting time between pandemic and this whole 2020. We're creating a history book right now that's probably going to be an entire semester to a year class. So how can people reach out to you if they want to work with you, or maybe if they need a little help forming what this statement is, if you want to help them? How can people find you?
My website is kerryregoconsulting.com, KerryRego consulting.com, and you can find me on almost every channel. I'm K Rego Biz. So communicate with me where you will, and I'll get back to you.
And I'm really glad that you chose to make that video, that it was passed on to me by a friend. I think it is a really important discussion, and you inspired me to take action, and I hope that I inspire somebody else to take action. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome, Kat. Thank you very much for having me and asking me to speak, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.